Hi, I'm George Kurtz, co-founder and CEO of CrowdStrike, and I'm joined by Mike Sentonas, our worldwide Chief Technology Officer, in our product snapshot. And today we're here to talk about Falcon Long-Term Repository. Mike, what is it?
Well, Falcon Long-Term Repository is the platform that we have for customers to be able to store telemetry for long periods of time. So as part of our retention policies, customers choose how long they want telemetry to be stored live. And then with Falcon Long-Term Repository, customers have the ability to store that telemetry in cheaper storage for 1, 2, 3 years or more, however long they want, in a very easy to use system.
What's the cost advantage there?
Huge cost advantage because this technology is built on the Humio platform, which has amazing functionality to be able to store data from anywhere with high compression rates, very quick ability to search that data, to interact with that data. We can store so much more for much cheaper than competitive solutions that are out there.
So you see a lot of folks trying to use a data lake as an example, as a way to put all this data in and then sort it out and search it, and a lot of cost and complexity. Do you need a data lake specifically for this information?
You don't, and there is a lot of complexity. There's a lot of complexity to set it up. There's a lot of complexity in buying these solutions, the cost of these solutions. People end up using different lakes, and inevitably what we find is over time people try to put these long-term storage type systems into play inside their organizations and kind of realize that it's not performant, it's costing a lot of money, and then they want to switch. So part of having Falcon Long-Term Repository that we create for the customer, we give them just end-to-end seamless capability to move all of that data from the back end of Falcon to store it for however long they want.
Now, how does it work? Do I need Falcon Data Replicator? What do I actually need to make this work?
Well, we provide the end-to-end architecture, so that's the most important part. So we leverage Falcon Data Replicator. The data will come out from the back end of Falcon, simple way of describing it, and then go straight into Falcon Long-Term Repository.
And is it all the data or a subset of data?
Well, that's the benefit. Customers have the ability to pick and choose. So importantly, you can pick everything. Some customers do like to store everything, but the flexibility of Falcon Data Replicator is such that you can actually pick what's important to you as well. We've made that process really easy, so it's seamless end-to-end from installing the sensor, getting it into the cloud, getting it into the long-term repository.
Well, one of the things that I've seen before was sort of this data lake approach, and ours is a bit different, but companies who try to pick data lakes and they put a whole bunch of data into it, they sort of then go, okay, what's next? They shrug, what do I do with it? So all this data goes into our replicator. How does it work? What does the customer do once the data's in there? Can they hunt across it?
They can hunt across it, they can search queries, they can build searches to look for what maybe happened. Think of a scenario like a major breach, and you want to work out whether your organization's been impacted. You want to go back 2-3 years. That's a lot of data to search. So you want to get that information at your fingertips as quickly as possible. So Falcon Long-Term Repository gives the end user the ability to do that. So you may have an IOC, you have an artifact, you want to have a look very quickly, and that's essentially the value that it provides you.
So if we look at things like these kind of long-running attacks that hadn't been discovered for a while, like SolarWinds, et cetera, if somebody wanted to go back in time and sort of understand, were they exposed? Was there anything that might have been running in the environment? Can they do this?
They can, but importantly, the first place to start is in the Falcon platform. So you want to go and have a look and do a machine to IOC relationship. You want to get information out of the Falcon platform. But if it is a long-running attack, if it's something that was a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, you have the ability to go to Falcon Long-Term Repository to do that search, to get that information very quickly.
And I think that's an important element because I always say there's a call that's made when there's big headlines come out, right? The CEO reads it in the Wall Street Journal, calls the CIO calls the CISO and says, are we vulnerable? Do we have this environment? Can we find it? What do we do about it? And I think this is a good technology that can help answer those questions very quickly rather than organizations trying to thrash around and see what happened. Obviously, Falcon itself in real time is going to tell you what's going on in the environment, but historically having a nice snapshot that goes back could be super helpful.
Yeah, it really is. And what we find really commonly during incident response is that customers haven't actually stored that information. We may get an organization that contacts us that says, can you come in and do an incident response? They don't use CrowdStrike. So we go in there fresh and we go to get access to their logs. We ask for access to telemetry and they don't have it. And when you dig into it, it's because of the cost argument, it's because of the complexity. It's very hard to do incident response when the logs, the telemetry hasn't been captured. So we want to make sure that organizations have the ability to have an easy way to store telemetry, to store it for as long as they want. And everyone's different. People in regulated environments need it for a lot longer. Some people want 1 to 2 years extra. I spoke to a customer today that wanted information for 3, 4, 5 years, and we give that flexibility.
So over time, some of these organizations are going to have petabytes of data, right? If you're collecting a lot of information over a number of years. And as you go through the search process, is that going to take me an hour, a day, a week to get back the results?
Yeah, in most solutions, it's going to take a long time. So if you're in the middle of an incident and you need to search as quickly as possible, that's not a great thing. So searches that take a long time, sometimes there's a lot of products that the searches don't ever finish. They don't return a result. We don't have that. We've gone and had the technology tested for petabyte scale performance, ingestion and performance, lightning speed, very little hardware required. But from a Falcon data repository perspective, you don't need to worry about that because that's all managed by CrowdStrike.
Let's go to the demo.
Hey, thanks, George. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the time. Again, this is Cristian Rodriguez. We're going to dive into basically our long-term repository, which is powered by Humio. You'll notice actually the first thing that you'll see when you first log in is basically these dashboards that actually capture all of the detection data that you would see natively within Falcon, right? So we do want to give our customers the ability to be familiar with the data type that's going into Humio in this backend. And this ultimately will lead to a lot faster and more efficient queries when getting into a few different use cases. So today we'll really cover 4 use cases that are tied to how our customers are embracing this long-term repository capability. 3 are going to be focused on atomic indicator hunting. So for example, you get a file or a hash of a file and you're trying to validate, how many systems access this file. But more importantly, you're trying to get your arms around the impact of this file's presence within your environment over a very long period of time, right? So you'll see a variety of different options from a time window perspective. So you can go back 30 days, for example, or for something that may have a larger impact given the nature of how it executed at some point. You may say, hey, I want to go back a year or maybe even 2 years, and we'll show you exactly what that file name is, AID values, and actual hosts themselves. The AID values are very unique to Falcon. The host names themselves are going to be tied to, of course, naturally the systems that are impacted, and then of course the actual target file name. So it's a really great way to get your arms around what type of potential damage, if this is something very, very malicious, or if it's something benign. Naturally, you can actually get your arms around the existence of it, and then of course the systems that were impacted the most. Another really great example of how we can use the Humio backend for like very long-term type of querying on data that can again extend itself past a year or so is by maybe going into a detection that you've seen in the past and grabbing a domain name, right? And this is actually a really great way to get your arms around if there was some type of domain name that was used and it was part of a C2 infrastructure at some point, or historically has been completely benign, but for some reason it was compromised and it was now acting up. That activity could have happened within a time frame that exceeds what you would typically store within your local SIM, for example. And what we've done with Humio, again, is we've expanded this capability with this very high efficiency engine, if you will, for processing very large amounts of data. We're talking about petabytes of data that we can ingest every single day. And then, of course, give our customers the ability to query that data and understand the impact. So in this scenario of this GitHub domain name that was originally accessed by PowerShell, we can actually go back a full year in this example anyway, and say not only the systems that access this specific domain name, but of course also the responsible processes that were tied to that activity. So in a similar vein, we can even do the same thing with an IP address, right? Where, really great scenario in this case would be, you are leveraging some type of third-party intelligence source for operationalizing intelligence, or maybe you have some type of sandbox tool and you've detonated a binary for further analysis. Well, this is a really great way again to understand, during that detonation of that malware or that file again that's in question, it's going to give you the opportunity to extract IOCs, right? In our scenario here, we're leveraging our sandbox capabilities that are tied to our Falcon intelligence offering. And so we'll give you this fantastic library of adversaries that are spread across three major categories of like e-crime and nation state adversaries and hacktivist groups. More importantly, the results of any type of sandbox detonation report will give you a full breakdown of any type of related IOCs that were extracted during that analysis. So let's take, for example, one of the IP addresses that we extracted from this binary, which naturally was in this scenario was classified as malicious. But even if it was benign, you can grab that IP address, apply it into this Humio backend or what we're calling LTR, and say, hey, I want to go back as far as a year and understand how many systems were impacted by this. And naturally, do I have any other systems that are still calling out to this domain? So the last scenario we're going to cover is actually tied to our ability to give our customers this hunting feature tied to command line details. So think about Log4j and the ability to understand the impact of Log4j across your entire enterprise, and really more importantly, not only understanding, where Log4j was referenced, but if you were being probed by an auditor, for example, to get an understanding on what that impact of the business was and how many systems and how long this was going on for. We again give you that full capability of understanding, what the past year looked like with respect to the amount of hits against that command line that's tied to Log4j. And again, more importantly, right, the actual processes that were responsible for making those calls. And so having access to that raw data, think about everything that you get with Falcon, where Falcon is not only giving you that detection data that you would see traditionally within our UI, but all the raw telemetry that we're capturing. So every process execution event that occurs, or domain name or DNS lookup or IP address, or checksum values that are tied to each binary that's launched on a system. That information and a whole lot more, right? Like registry modifications and so forth. All of that is actually part of what you would see with Falcon Data Replicator. We have some really great details on our website that focus on what those actual data values are within Falcon Data Replicator. It's a substantial amount of very valuable information that you can, again, tie automatically into this Falcon long-term repository backed by Humio, and then run queries across this data as far back as you want that data to exist within this instance of Humio. So thanks for your time, guys. I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you. That was a fantastic demo, and I think it gives customers and prospects a great view on how our repository can actually help solve some big problems in their environment, and provides that long-term, cost-effective solution to storing data.
So this is our second product snapshot. We hope you enjoyed it. Give us comments, write to us below. Let us know what you think. If there's other products that you want us to talk about, other scenarios you want us to go through, we'll certainly happily do that. We want to do these as many as possible. Wherever we're traveling together in the world, we're going to pump these out so you can see the product. The best way to pick a product is see it work live, either through one of the product snapshots, or we invite you to do a proof of value inside your organization. Thanks for listening in.